which has been and given a presentation. There were many of us, as many as 4 or 5 that were going on this trek this past fall, till it turned out it was just Holly and I loved it. And I even told Holly when she signed up that she is going to have to do the presentation because you've seen what I know about Nepal, my style. So tonight, Holly, tell what you saw. And by the way, I have not seen your presentation at all. So I am very curious to know what you thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. As Phil said, he approached me, a little over a year ago and said, Holly, you want to go to Mustang? I said, what? Where? He goes, Mustang. I said, Phil, spell it. He said, it's like the car. You mean like the horse? He goes, yeah. I go, oh, okay. And so I found about and started doing some reading, and there was some really fascinating stuff about sky caves and sky burials. And I talked to Barb up in New Hampshire, and she suggested the book Sky Burial, and I read that and decided, you know what, this might be a lot of fun. So as these ladies are saying, heartily welcome. I don't know about the second half of that, but heartily welcome. Let's see if I can. These are the rules. When we got, I was going to type this up on a slide. I know you can't read this. I can give you a little bit of the highlights of this. To go to Upper Mustang was closed off to the public until about 1991, 92 timeframe. And so in order to keep all the people down and so forth, what they do is you've got a $500 visa to get in there. And they check it several points along the trail. They're pretty strict about that. As it says there, the area is 2,567 square kilometers. I looked that up. That's about the size of Rhode Island. And it says that they have, at the time these were posted, 1,171 households. So even 4 times that, if you figure a parent and 2 kids, that doesn't come anywhere near close to Rhode Island's population, which is in the millions. So it's a very sparsely populated area, but it's concentrated in given areas. So we were going to go and let's see, I make sure I do this correctly, so I'm not doing crazy things here. This is a map of Nepal. When most people go to Nepal, they go to Everest Base Camp. So that way, and you fly into Kathmandu and go east to Lukla, and then start walking to what they call EBC, Everest Base Camp. Okay. In this case, we're not going to go east. We're going to go west. We're going to go into Pokhara.
We're going to go west. We're going to go.
Well, I got echoes. There are mountains here I didn't know about. And so you can see there in the upper northwest corner, that's where the conservation area is, and that's where we'll be, or we did trek. And I just point out here because it'll be a little tougher to do it with my normal PowerPoint tricks. If you see Johnson, you see in red Marfa, keep that in your mind. It's a little bit of southwest or west of Johnson. I'll not have to come back to this map then. This is basically what we did. Going north, we went northbound from Johnson to Lo Manthang, to Lo Manthang, and then came back to Johnson. Now, it wasn't a true loop because if you follow the stars, the red stars are where we stayed on the northbound route, and the blue stars are where we stayed on the southbound. And so northbound, we stayed pretty much east And on the southbound, we more westerly trail. And for reasons that hopefully will show up. And then we also took, at the very end, took a trip out to Mulkinath. Mulkinath is one of the 4 Hindu pilgrimage sites. So that's what we did in a nutshell. Before I got to Kathmandu, and it was just before you got there, I think, I got there on a Sunday, and this had happened on Thursday. They had an inordinate rainstorm. They had to pull 500 people off the mountains, and 200 people died. And this is a picture taken from Dale's house, from house in Kathmandu. You'll see that, if I can do this without, the road here is completely washed out. You've got trucks on their side and so forth. We were going to take a bus from Kathmandu to Pokhara. Well, given this, that was out of the question. So we then had to change our plans and fly. We met with Sangri, I keep remembering his name, the Sangria, Sangri Lomi, who was the expedition organizer and the head of the company, right? Yeah, the company we used. And we met with him on Sunday and he said, look, we can't do it. You're going to have to go this route, but don't worry, you'll meet your porter out in once you get to Johnson. So Phil and I were on our own to take off. But before we went, whoops, wrong. See, before we went, we took a trip to Kamal in Kathmandu to do some last minute shopping. And Phil needed some poles. And it was interesting to find out that they only sell poles one at a time. You finally did find a pair, matching pair. But the other thing I discovered is, you know, we talk about North Fakes and joke about North Fakes. A lot of the stuff has already been used. They don't tell you it's been used, but you know, you found poles that had been used and stuff like that. And while we were there, we had lunch just overlooking that street you saw. And I thought this was fascinating. Here were 3 young girls working construction. They were shoveling rocks in the buckets on the right and sand into these baskets to hand over to the guys to make the concrete. So it was pretty impressive to watch. Anyway, we met at the airport. We took off. Whoops, I had my on a Monday, was it? Saturday. Let's see, Monday. Yeah, Monday. We left Kathmandu on a Monday, and this is Sangri, our guide, and this is Lenduk Lomi, and remember that name because it's going to come up again and again. He is the Lenduk. This Lenduk is the head of the company. They both have the last name Lomi because some of you may know the like the ethnic group is your last name in Nepal. Lomis are actually an offshoot of the Sherpas, so they will do high altitude work. Okay. This was the airport, the domestic airport when we got there. Our flight was delayed. Let's see, our flight was supposed to be at 10:45. It finally took off at 2:20, but Phil didn't mind because he's ready to go. Oh, so see, I guess with this it doesn't do.
Was there a video feed one?
Yeah, there's an animation.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay, let's try it.
It should act just like your mouse.
Sure. Oh, cool.
There was something that went on there.
Pull up the picture. You can't pull up the picture.
Trying to put up a picture.
Ah, there he is. That's how Phil spent his time. I paced and drank coffee. He relaxed. Okay, sorry, Phil. You asked me to do it. You're in trouble now, buddy. Okay. So anyway, we eventually took off and flew
I do
in.
want to point out that I had on an AMC shirt.
You did, I know, for a good bit of the trip too. We flew into Pokhara, And this was the hotel we stayed in, the Karuna, and we spent 4,250 Nepali rupees a night. 32 bucks a night, includes breakfast and showers and an amazing hotel with coffee pot and everything. So that was the most expensive hotel we stayed in on the entire trip, but it was well worth it. This area is actually a tourist area where a lot of the Indians come across and a lot of the Nepali come here. And this is Lake View. And that's what it's known for. The hotel was on south side, they called it, the south side of the lake where all the hotels are. And these are the activities that people partake in on the lake. That and some swimming, I understand, although I didn't do that. But we were there just for the one night. And the next day we went to the airport to fly to Johnson. Now, flying into Johnson, well, I'll show you a couple of pictures that'll explain it then. Here's the airport. This is a mountain. At the bottom, there's a mountain called Fishtail that you can see from the airport. It's never been legally climbed because the government will not give you a permit to climb it. People have climbed it apparently, but you're not allowed to climb that mountain. It's pretty impressive.
Holly, did you say what time we were?
Oh, I'm sorry, we left, end of, yeah, October 1st, the first day, the second day of the year. And then as you fly into Johnson over these very, very high peaks that drop into a very deep canyon. And because of that, you have a lot of katabatic winds. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but what happens, cold air is dense. You have adiabatic pressure, when katabatic is the other direction. You've got cold, dense air high up in the mountains because they're over the snowfields. And as that warmed, and you got warm air down below, and the cold air will actually drop, and especially during the day as the ground heats up, the air down below is less dense, and so there's movement from the high density to the low density. And so you get these incredible winds in Johnson. And we will demonstrate those for you too. But this was my the view from my hotel in Johnson. This is overlooking the airport strip, which is just at the bottom, and then looking at the mountains there. The first day, oh, this is the most important thing. We met Lenduk Lomi. He, same name as the head of the company, but he's our porter. And yeah, so I guess Lenduk is it's like John Smith. Lenduk's a common name, and Lomi is an entire ethnic group. So you got a lot of Lenduk Lomis. But he was a pretty amazing guy. He and Sangri took us on a walk up the valley, up the road in Johnson. And we crossed the river there. The river there is called the Kali Gandaki. It translates to Black Beauty. And it's the river that we will follow the entire, or the most of our trip as we head north and south. It'll be along that river. We'll cross it several times. These were a couple of the first crossings. One at the south end of town in the middle, and the north end of the town at the top.
Is it always muddy like that, or is that because of the rain?
I assuming it's because of the rain, but there's a lot of silt. I say that only because there is a town that I really fell in love with across from a town called Kagbeni, and they had put a dike in the river, and the settlement, the stuff had settled out. All the silt had settled out behind it. There was like blue water, which was kind of interesting to see. Here, oh gee,
9,000.
9,000 feet. Okay, I was about to say about 3,000 meters. Yeah, is what I was going to say. I was going to give it to you in meters. Okay, thank you, Phil. So this, you talk about the river, and we talked about the storm. Here's the strength of that storm and the water there. You've got a steam shovel on its side. You've got embankments falling out. You've got cars that have toppled over. So it wasn't a river to mess with. And these are typical houses in the area. I said the winds are very strong. If you look at here, the roof It's kind of hard to see in this, but here is a blow up. It's basically a bunch of rocks, and then on top of the rocks, they put their firewood for the winter. And that all holds down the roofs in the heavy winds. And these are some of the sights we saw as we walked through town. You have women stringing apple slices onto wood. And what we learned, I mean, having lived in the Northwest, everyone knows the only apple capital in the world is Wenatchee, right? Apparently, Mustang is an amazing apple capital. I had apples on muesli almost every morning for breakfast. And they will sell you dried apples, and we got fresh apples from our guide and stuff. It was great. And then you'll see people carrying, you know, their, whoops, I did this wrong. Go back again. Go back again. Go back.
Let's see the later.
Yeah. I did what I did once. So.
It's okay.
Okay,
You're
thank you.
You're good.
You have people carrying all sorts of grain around and other stuff on their back. It wasn't unusual to see 3 and 4 cases of apples on someone's back, a guy's back. And then you've got stores, lots of stores. And so it's a real hubbub there, where a lot of the different tracks start from. And this is us walking along the road there, and here are a couple of friendly goats. I learned there are lots and lots and lots of goats. I took off that afternoon and went up onto a hillside and saw a bunch of goats. And where we brand our animals or will paint, like in England, they'll paint their sheep's wool and stuff. These guys paint the horns. It's really kind of interesting to see little blue horns and red horns on their goats. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to mention the other thing that you'll hear me say over and over again, and it's not that evident here, but you see a lot of the older homes mixed in with very fancy new houses. We'll see that throughout the entire trip. I have never seen so many steam shovels in my life. There were steam shovels in the river, there were steam shovels at monasteries, and there were steam shovels through town. And so there is a lot of construction going on there right now. The next day we went down, we took a walk to Marfa. Now Marfa, as I showed you on that first map, is a little southwest of where we were. And we took a road walk down there. Marfa says it's the apple capital of the world. Not Wenatchee, but Marfa. And a bunch of other towns too. And here are some of the orchards, and it was quite obvious as we came into town. Here are some red apples, there were some other apples there. And the town is amazing in that, as Phil pointed out to me when we were there, the highway doesn't run through town. The highway runs around town. And so in town, you've got all these slate pavements, and it is incredibly clean. It's really, really nice. But again, you've got the old mixed with the new. As you look at these pictures, they look pretty darn new. But in a second, I'll show you the other part of town. And again, you get, dang, here we go.
So they have a lot of slate things.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to point out on that last one. There we go. Try again. There we go. As with any other town around Nepal, you've got the prayer wheels on the left, or well, it'd be on your right-hand side as you walk into town. Do it right way, Holly. So these are old, this is the older part of town. These are all stables that the animals stay in. And their homes too are made of more like an adobe or rocks piled. Here you can see the rocks and more stables for the animals, for a lot livestock. On the roofs, people dry all sorts of chilies and beans for the winter, and apples, tons of apples. And here is someone storing up some wood for winter and washing clothes. So it was a pretty active town. Go forward, yeah. There's a monastery in town. And here, it's also acts as a school. And so you've got kids really young, as the little boy on the left, or older adolescents, all studying together. And this was one monastery that we saw there. This is the second monastery. This one, here's the airport, the end of the runway at the airport. Just above it, here on this prominence here, is another monastery. And again, I had my notes on my slides, but I didn't know on Zoom I can't cheat. I'll get you the name of the actual monastery. But it's called the Nyingma Monastery. And after we went through town, we walked back to Pokhara by climbing up to the monastery, switch backing up here and heading up there. So you can see us heading up the road. It's actually Phil and Lenduk there. And in the background, that's Durba Lake. And that's a heart-shaped sacred lake, but it's also part of a park system that folks can use. And this is where you enter the monastery. And this is the monastery up close. There it's huge, lots and lots of construction going on there right now. There's rebar there, here, and stuff. And you can see this is all pristine. It's closed up right now because no one can go in because of the construction. But that was the monastery we walked to that day. Now, here is Lenduk, what he did every morning. We'd put our bags outside the door. He'd pick them up right from our door, and then he'd pack them up and be ready to go. So now you know that we're ready to start trekking. And this day we're going to go from, see if I can remember. We went from Pokhara, from Johnson to Kagbeni. Oh, I forgot we did that already. Okay. We went from Johnson to Kagbeni, and Kagbeni is a town right on the Kali Gandaki River. These are some scenes as we started up the river. This is, oops, again. I keep doing this, sorry guys. I did this last time too. Okay, there we go. This is a monastery on the way. I tried to find the name of it. I have the sign on the road, but it didn't tell you what this monastery was called even. But again, a steam shovel at the monastery. And there is a swing bridge in the lower left that'll get you up there if you wanted to go. This is where we stopped for coffee. We stopped at the Hotel Hilton for coffee. Whoops, gosh. Did this last time with Alaska. This is the town that we were in, and the Hilton is one of those buildings there. As you can see, they had lots and lots of apples drying, and these were our greeters. Cute kids. And then this is getting into Kagbeni. Kagbeni is right on the river, and you'll see it gets a lot of wind in the afternoon. And you see these fields here, these red fields. You're going to see a lot of those. That's buckwheat. And I've got somewhere an animation, I hope it comes up, of what buckwheat looks like, but it has red stalks. I've never seen buckwheat growing. And so it has red stalks, and it's something to remember because you're going to be seeing a lot of bright red fields. Now, there we go. It worked this time. There's buckwheat. There's buckwheat growing. Now, as we walk through town, we started in, and this is the stupa. And as I recall, those paintings were inside that stupa, correct? Yeah, because I think you told me to go through there and look. And there were the paintings all in the inside of the stupa. The stupa is kind of a, it's interesting because in Nepal, a stupa is a place of worship, a place of worship. And it could, like a sort of a chapel, but a stupa can also just be a stone structure with prayer stones around it. And in Nepal, apparently, especially in Mustang, they call them chortens, Chortens. And so I was constantly confused as to whether I was looking at a chorten, a gompa, or a stupa. A gompa is a temple. That one I have learned, or monastery. It's a place where teaching occurs. Stupa is more for prayer.
Some Buddhists and some Hindu.
Some Buddhist, some Hindu there, mostly Buddhism, but you do have some Hindu spillover from India. And these are some of the prayer items, you know, the religious objects. This is, this is a mani stone or a prayer stone, but this one's kind of special. It's got a face on it. This is a chorten, or down by the water. I also understand, I was reading somewhere where it depends on where it is in altitude, which then gets totally confusing. And this is a very old set of prayer wheels. And now, as with every other town that I'm going to talk about, there's a very old section of town and a new section of town. Here is the old section, and we're going to walk through it so you see some of these buildings up close. And as you look at this picture, again, this is this area here, and these are all the newer structures in town. The one thing I noticed is the older ones have this barrier of vegetation, where the newer ones don't, which is interesting. I wonder if they had a lot more storms, what was going to happen. This is walking through the older part of town. In most of these homes, the lower floor is for livestock of some kind, and the upper story is for living. And the thing that's interesting is some of them have actual doors and windows, others did not. They were just openings. And we passed one door at one point, and it was about that high. And Sangri said, "Oh, the doors are built small specifically so that the spirits can't get in. The evil spirits can't climb in. They'll bonk their heads, I guess." That's the belief anyway. Here are some more pictures, and you can see here, these are open windows, but these have no panes at all. And just, again, the firewood for winter is on the roofs. This is the newer part of town. And you've got some structures such as this that have some of the older construction still intact, and then more newer architecture on top. And then you've got something like this, which is brand new from the ground up. This is where we stayed, and I'm sure you guys may not be able to read this, but the name of this hotel, Yak Donald's. And they serve yak Happy Meals. You had one night, right? Yeah, Phil had one night, I did not. But it was really a very nice place. And the other thing they specialized in was apple. They called it apple pie, or they called it apple crisp, right? But it was made more like a pie, but the apples were grated. It was awfully good. We had apple crisp for one night for dinner. That was dinner. And the other thing that upstairs, she had what happened here? That she had a prayer room upstairs, one of the owners. And one morning I went in and she was praying, and there was another place we stayed, similar sort of thing. They came in, I got in there early, and they were lighting incense and so forth, and filling the water bowls, the 7 water bowls. And there, oh, there's Yak Donald. And these are just scenes around town of some of the women and children in town doing the laundry, bringing in the feed for the animals. And this lady was she actually doing some construction work in her nice outfit. And this is in the older part of town. These are the guys in town. This was kind of interesting. Yeah. This is in the older part of town. And this is a walk we took in the afternoon, and you can see from the prayer flags here, they're flat out horizontal. And not a very nice picture, but my hair was standing on end, and you can, everything's like blown back. Oh, the one thing I didn't mention is along that first day in Tamal, Phil convinced me to wear a money belt. You can see, I didn't realize how evident it was until I looked at these pictures, but because you carry a stack of Nepali money about this thick with you. And so he was kind enough to loan me one. And again, the river is pretty nasty, and I'm gonna get this right yet. This was the same issue I had last time. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner there, the dust that blows in. And that was one thing that Sangri told both Phil and I, make sure you have a buff. So when we were in Pokhara, we went shopping for a buff, each of us, so that we'd have one, and it got used more than not. And this is some of the vendors along the river there. And the thing that looks weird, perhaps it certainly was to me, is why are they selling all these stones? Well, the reason they're selling stones, let's see, darn, it doesn't fly in. I can't believe it didn't come up. Let's see, what do
I
we do?
think you tap on the picture,
You tap on the picture? Okay.
which you can't do with that thing. You have to use it.
Okay.
Just let me know when you want to do it. We'll do it.
Okay, thanks. These are fossilized ammonites. Oh. I can't,
Do you want to switch to the mouse?
no, it's okay. I just have to remember where the pointer is and where the advances. These are ammonites. These two rocks, this rock, I'll tell you what happened on that. But I was going to buy them here and take some home for my kids, but said, why should I do that? Why should I carry rocks for 40, 50 some odd miles and come back? We're coming back to Kagbeni. So I didn't purchase one. This one, again, I'll explain, but it was a gift to me on the return to Kagbeni. But they're pretty cool. And they were selling them for about, 300 Nepali rupees in town. And I was like, okay, that's good. And I mentioned that because the next day, we entered, this is where we start entering the upper Mustang, anything north of Kagbeni, and we will be checking in with the police at certain points along the way. And so this is where they start getting really serious. But this is what Kagbeni looks like as you start up the river. Again, you can see all of the buckwheat fields, and they'll look different on our return. I'll just mention that. And then this is Nilgiri North, right? Okay, that's the one I can pick out. And there's another time where I'm going to need your help. But again, we start north of along the river on the eastern shore. And right out of town, we bump into goats. Goats on the road, goats climbing the mountain ahead of us there. Well, you know what it is? I hold it down too long, I think. Goats following ahead of us, and then this shepherd had just sent all his goats into the river to drink. But goats were everywhere. And this was an organic apple farm, supposedly. These boxes were not at here. These were slightly down the road, but you can see how many apples that area produces. And this was like dead, but what I really loved were these copper doors. And this is as you head further north, we're getting into the town of Tangbi. And as we went through Tangbi, a gentleman comes out onto the road and he's acting really strange. And he has one of those ammonite rocks in his hand and he says, "Do you want to buy this?" I said, "Buy it? Well, how much?" He goes, I think it was 1,200 he started at, 1,200 rupees. I said, 1,200, I can buy them in Kagbeni for 400 or 300, I said to him. He said, "Okay, I'll sell them to you for 200. I said, "Okay." So I got my ammonite for 200 rupees, which is $1.40 roughly. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. He followed us all the way down to Chursang and realized later he was drunk as a skunk. But he was talking to everyone. I mean, actually, our guide, and I think you talked to him a bit too, right? Yeah. I had my ammonite. I was. Oh, and this I thought, I don't know if you guys can read this, but this was a sign in Kagbeni. I love it. It says, lodging in a homely environment. And then as we walk farther down, the banks start to change. They begin to look more like Bryson Zion. You get these huge eroded columns of dirt, and it's conglomerate rock for the most part here. And it's just incredible. And Phil says to me, "You like this? Just wait." I'm like, "Okay." And so it was pretty impressive. And this is a monastery. Again, I had the name up on a hill, but it was built in, this is in Chursang, and it's above the mountain in Chursang, which is where we stopped for lunch. It was built in the 1500s originally. Yeah. And still active. There are my other rocks. That just blew me away. We came up over this rise and I went, "Oh my God, it looks like the Southwest." It just blew me away. And in those rocks, you're going to get caves like this that people actually lived in. They dug them out and lived in them. These are not the official sky caves of Upper Mustang, but these are what they're like. And you'll see when we get up there. We went to one place where they're very famous for the sky caves. And this was in Kali that night. So we stopped there for the night, and it has two names. It's Tale and no, it's not. Is it Chile? Is it or Taile? Chile? Okay. Everywhere you look, spelling is different. Some places it's one H, other places it's two H's. One place it's an A, other places it's an E, and then they have entirely different names for different places. Like Sangbuche has 3 different names that I know of at least. But again, you've got a lot of agriculture and lots of apples. And what I loved here was them stringing them on strings like a clothesline to dry. These folks that we stayed with, we stayed at their place right there. They own about 700 trees. And this was an interesting spot. This is the town, and this is the town around us in Chile. This is the one place we didn't have in-suite bathroom. You had to run, like my room was like maybe here. I had to run out and across the roof or the roof and then the road to get to the bathroom. And we had to pay for showers. Both this again, only place we had to pay for showers to leave, but it was the only spot. And both of us decided, you know what? Nah. It was questionable to begin with. And again, as you'll see everywhere else, the wood on the roofs and stuff drying on the roofs. And this was my room. And this was our least expensive night. And I think we paid 800 rupees or so, for not only bed, but breakfast as well. So 800 rupees, you're talking $5.50. So can't complain about running out to the bathroom. And out that door is where our trail started the next morning. We started up and Sangre was going to take us to a little town called was that day was chilling, I think. Or no, it's the other one. Yeah. I'm trying to, okay, I've got the names here, guys. Sorry. I had them on notes in my PowerPoint, but I didn't realize that Zoom doesn't let you cheat. Walk Chile. Oh, that's right. It's GHY Gaikar, right? Yeah. GHAYAR. Thank you. Gaikar. And so we were going to go, and so we went across this great swing bridge and dropped into the town, only to discover that they didn't want us there. Right there was a gate with a sign that said 500 rupee fine if you cross this line. And we were not going to chance it. So we were pretty heartbroken. But as you can see, again, lots of buckwheat and apples and old homes. And I was like really disappointed. See, here I am. I couldn't believe that structure. I mean, that rock formation. That's Holly at the end of a day of hiking. And it was when we left the hotel, not only did we get breakfast, but they gave the guides an apple for each of us, and which I thought was really nice. And these guys never knew the word elevensies. So we taught them the word elevensies. And so here we are. They told me, here we are. Let's go back. This is going to be a mess. Go back. There we go. Here we are having elevensies, and the guys having their apples, all of us having our apples. One thing I didn't mention is a lot of this trip, this portion of the trip, we're on a fair amount of trail, but there are sections on this trip where we're doing a lot of road walking, an awful lot of road walking. And you can see here, we start climbing, and today we're headed from Chile to Sanguche. And there is this very steep climb here. You always want to go for here. There's not only was the road steep, but then we got on this little trail up to the top here. And that was pretty steep. And we finally got to a pass and got our picture taken here by Sangre. And here he is going over the pass. And after we got up that far, we then had to cross this bridge into, and then up this, switch back up here to this opening into the town. There's a gate up there into the town of San Boucher. And these are black-tailed deer that we happen to see a whole collection, herd of them on the mountain. They kind of blend in really nicely into the stone there, so you don't see them too well, but that's kind of cool. And this is dropping into Sangbuche or Sangmochen or whatever you want to call it. And again, more fields and our hotel. It was like a one hotel town. I said, oh my gosh, this is a 2-toilet, 1 hotel town. Because there was a public toilet with 2 doors and 1 hotel. And then there's got this across the valley, this amazing monastery. Again, I tried to find the name of that one and I couldn't find it. You don't have to, but no, I didn't think. And then there were these structures out in the field. And I said, what the heck are those? Those are pallets of stone, quote unquote, i.e. they pile them up so that when you're building your house, you come out there and say, I want that rock pile, I want that rock pile, whatever. So that I thought was kind of cool. But again, a lot of construction for the stone work. And so here we are climbing out of Sangoche, and that day we were going to, the pass is at, let's see, we're heading to Zaidi, but what is the pass? Ah, here we go. Nila Pass at 4,010 meters, or I have done the conversion, a little over 13,000 feet. And then dropping down into this town here for lunch. This very fancy hotel. And the one thing I didn't put the pictures on here, but I have pictures of the restroom there. It has a washer in there. It's like the only place I saw an electric clothes washer anywhere on the trip. And we stopped for coffee on our way. And this was a highlight of my trip. I had 2 days where just stand out. This was a coffee shop. And as we approached the coffee shop, this little girl approached the two of us. First, she hit up Phil and said, "Do you want some popcorn?" And she's handing out the popcorn, spoke beautiful English. Her name is Tenzin, as you can see here. I pulled out my notebook at one point and asked her to write her name. And, you know, because I caught on that she could speak a little English. And this is the second time I've seen or heard, excuse me, Nepali kids sit there and sing either Wheels on the Bus or the alphabet. The last time I took a bus ride to Chitwan, the little girl next to me started saying, "Wheels on the bus, go round." And I started singing with her, and she looked at me like, "What?" And then we sang all sorts of things. It was fun. And I give Tenzin credit. Phil, that picture she took of you, hey, do that again. Go to get that's the picture Tenzin took of you. She was fascinated with my camera. She said, "Can I take a picture?" I said, "Sure." And so Phil said, "Take a picture of me. I'll have to give that one to you."
Do you have a camera in addition to the phone? Or-
No, I had that's another story. The phone is a whole nother story too. I had my phone with me. I was taking some panoramics on it. There was, at the end of this trip, we were going to go to India, and I'll tell you guys what happened there. But we were in this place called Ilyam in Nepal, in the mountains of Nepal, right on the Indian border. And I plugged my phone in and woke up at like 2:20 in the morning with it going, trying to restart. And I had to do a factory restart on my phone and lost all my pictures because of, even with Wi-Fi turned on, you couldn't, upload. So
you have
beware.
camera.
I have a camera also. One time, years and years ago on the trail, someone said to me, "Oh, this is a PhD camera, huh?" I said, "Oh, really?" They said, "Yeah, push here, dummy." Mine is a little bit more than that, although right now it's kind of dying. I can do a manual override, which I never done. After I got married, my husband knew how to use an SLR. I got lazy. So, but what I started to say is all this jewelry is made by Tenzin's mom. This is her mom here. This is her grandmother and her little brother. And Tenzin kept trying to sell me jewelry. Let me tell you, she was a good sales. And of course, a lotus flower on my cappuccino. I don't normally take pictures of food, but I had to take that for my son-in-law, who's a copy of, and then poor Tenzin, Phil said to her, "Can you spell it in Nepali?" And she really struggled. She could do the, Arabic alphabet, the English alphabet, but she was struggling with the Nepali alphabet, and her mom coached her and she got it done. So, and then see, she wrote AEIOU of her own accord there. So it was a really fun interaction. And the neat thing was on the way back, we see her again. And so this is the town of, this is now Sali, right? No, this is Samang. And again, prayer wheels, buckwheat drying on a roof, and a brand new hotel. And we were going into this. This is where we spent the night, and this was a new nunnery, they call it, i.e., a school. And these pictures are the garden of the woman who ran the guest house. I mean, the food was incredibly fresh. And then this is buckwheat drying that the kitty decided was a litter box. As I walked in, the kitty was there using it, and I mentioned it to her. She said, "Oh." I was like, okay. She rinses the grain before she cooks, or boils it really well. And I don't. Can't tell. But anyway, that's that. Yeah, they were, I talked to their daughter at length. Their daughter went to Pokhara to study and has come back to help her mom with the housework. And this is the next day as we leave and start on the next leg of the trip. We again had goats to meet us in the morning, walked down to the river through this apple orchard here. And it was interesting to see this woman coming up from the water with this whole basket full of cauliflower. I don't know where she was growing it, but obviously somewhere across the river. And then that day we went up, we climbed out of Pamboche, and we get into this plain. And this is the longest prayer wall in Nepal for sure, and probably a good bit of Southeast Asia. It's 1/4 of a mile long. And what I was fascinated by the prayer walls in that this is what you normally would see on a rock. But I also like the lotus blossom ones, like made it into a lotus blossom. I've seen some where they have goddesses sitting on a lotus blossom. Here is another lotus blossom. And then this one has like part of this. And I don't know if it's the Oman, I can't say that. Oh, it is, it's the, okay, but it's not the whole thing. No, it's the first half. And just beyond that, there was a stupa, or this is a stupa, I would think, but I call it a stupa. But see, to me, this is a stupa. These are Chorten. But I don't know. I'm not the expert. Believe me, I'm not the expert. So again, another 11Zs. They really got into that, giving us apples at sometime in the morning. And as we head up a road, or actually Linduk does, with our packs up to this steep pass. And we're heading from Sangboche to, where did we go that day? Walk Sangboche to Gami. And it depended. Some days we were in by 1 o'clock, so 4 or 5 hours. And distances weren't that long. If I go back to that original slide, if I knew the slide number, I could just I could try it and see if I go back there. At the coffee shop where we met Tenzin, her mom had posted the mileage between different places. And our longest day looking at that was about 20 kilometers. But a lot of these days we were over 2,000 and 3,000 meter passes. So we worked. I lost 10 pounds without trying. Yeah, I was eating, believe me. I ate pretty well, right? Yeah. Yeah. So how did you find the altitude? We were pretty high. There were a couple of days, the day we went over one of the passes, I did feel it a little bit just in my lungs, but a lot of that was other stuff I think going on. It wasn't that bad, and I think that's also why they did that shakeout hike or walk to Martha and up that hill, just to see how we'd react at that altitude. So this is in Chile. Is that where I am? Oh, Gami. I'm in Gami now. And these are the various religious structures that were there in that town. This is you can do this really. This is the old castle. And then this is a newer monastery in town. And then this was the view from my hotel window. And this is a nunnery. And I went out for a walk. I took like a 2-hour walk out along the ridge and back, because there was something I wanted to see. And on my way back, these two young boys were waving at me saying, come in, come in. I said, I can't come in. They said, no. I said, I can't. And so they came out, and so we started talking, and they were having the time of their lives. They were saying, I said, oh, really? How old are you? Oh, I'm 20. I said, really? You're 20? Wow. You know, and things like that. It was really kind of fun. I was having a good time with these guys. And this is the next day. We're hiking out and going. Today we are going from, I should know these by heart now. We're going from Gami to Charang. So we're going to be back along the river. Oh, sorry, that's just sunny. Charang, no, we're going to still be high. And just to look at the finally seeing a lot of the really tall mountains here. These were cloud covered in time. There are days where we can actually see the range. And the other thing the reason I have this picture in here is down by the river. I don't know if you can make it out, but there's some shepherd, like a shepherd's dwelling, and then in places that herd their animals by the river. And this is the first time I actually start seeing the really big caves. This is in, where are we? Are we in Charang? Yeah, in Charang. Charang or Tarang. And the reason I put this picture up here is all these two pictures. This one has, I'm going to use the pointer and then hit the advance instead. Okay. This one has an enclosure for animals, very old enclosure. And then this one, if I could blow this picture up more, it's actually painted in there on that wall. There's actually painting. And there is a whole nother area that was too far from where we'll be at the northernmost point when we actually go into the Sky Caves, where there are some very famous paintings. I think it's called Choising or something like that. Choising, something, yeah. I was hoping to see that. And again, it's super along the road entering town. And so this day we're climbing to Lola Pass, and before we drop back down. And so here we're at almost 4,000 meters at the top there. We climbed a good bit that day. And then we get to the top, and from the top, from Lola Pass, you can see, well, you can't see it really well, but in the distance there, in the middle of town, on the top of a hill, is the monastery for Lo Manthang. So Lola Pass into Lo Manthang. Can't believe I'm remembering some of this. Okay, so we're going now into Lo Manthang, and it's a long drop down, long afternoon of downhill walking. And this is a military installation I found on a walk, but there was another one that we saw. You know, I thought Sangre at one point said there was a coffee shop here, and I got all excited. We're going to go to a coffee shop, and then it turned out it was a military installation. And I was taking pictures and went, "Oh my God, I'm not supposed to." They said that if you get to the Chinese border, they will check your phones, and if you have any pictures of any Buddhism or Buddhists or whatever, it's tossed, which I thought was kind of interesting. And this was, again, just a very small prayer wall as you head into town. I'm sounding I'm repeating myself a lot, I know. But this is in Lo Manthang, and this is the entrance into town. We spent 2 days here, And this was by far and away I think, the nicest place. And I think we spent, what's it, 2,000 rupees or something a night, something incredible like that. I had it written down. And it's about, I think, or less. But anyway, it was lovely. It was really, really lovely, really airy. Again, the view out my window. And just the nicest lady. She goes by Little Star, was the translation of her name. And you'll see her in the picture. These are the cows in town. Now, why am I so excited about cows? Every town had cows wandering through town. But the thing I thought was really cool is they get these really nice earrings. Instead of painting them or tattooing them or branding them, they get really nice earrings. And you can tell your cow by what kind of earrings she's wearing that day. And these then are some of the older stabling areas for the cattle. Then this is the monastery. It's huge and sits right on top of the hill at the end of town. And it took the place of one that is in town now, an older one in town now. This is a newer monastery in town, and it was closed. Only certain hours could you go in and visit it. And the time we were there, we weren't able to go. Now, Phil bumped into, and he said, I walked right through it. A prayer service going on in town. I had a picture of a couple of women that were sitting there when I walked through the first time. And they were also, you also were at the gate when they were chanting down at the gate. I missed that the first day. Yeah, but this is one of the newer monasteries or nunneries in town. I think it also says nunnery. And again, a bunch of Torten. And on the map, it says Torten here, these little square things. I always think of Torten as being square. I don't know why. And here is a stupa, in my mind, is rounded with a big Torten next to it. And same stupa from a different angle. And this is the old monastery with the prayer wheels. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, you walk in town and it's, oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention. When I looked at Tenzin, she had nail polish on, really pretty silver nail polish, only on her left hand. And I asked her, I said, oh, why didn't you do both hands? And she was kind of like fumbling with what to say. And I suddenly realized, and her mom and Phil said, food, I you're right, because they eat with their right hand. And the one thing that I loved, and anytime you stopped for a meal, every place you walked into had a sink and soap. So you come in off a dusty trail, you wash your hands. And Phil one time said to me, when we looked at the condition of the towel I was about to dry my hands on, was like, I'm not sure about that towel, or you made some comment, or your hand's going to be still clean or something like that. But yeah, every kitchen had a sink that you walked in and washed your hands before dinner or your meal, which was great. I loved it. But here are the ladies that I saw. Now this is in the old palace. This is the entrance to the old palace. And these are the walls. You can walk through the palace. And these ladies were sitting in one of the courtyards. And I think that's where they were having that prayer service, right? Yeah, that I missed. They were there with, I don't know what they're called, but they look like we had them as kids, these things that you spin and they go like that. When you spin them, they're oval when they whip around. They had those while they were praying and chanting. And this is the old, no, it's not the old castle. That's just an older town. These are the stores in town, big tourist area, Lo Manthang. And then these are ladies drying some grain there and drying buckwheat there. And this was really cool. This was the next day from Lo Manthang. In Lo Manthang, we took a day off and we went by jeep to the Sun Cave, which is this, and it also has another name. And it is a monastery that I can't remember how old it is now, but it goes back probably into the 1500s or before. And they actually built it into the mountain. And we actually were able to go up and explore it a little bit. It's still active. This is where the monks reside. It's like right in this building here. And these are just two pictures taken on the inside. It has now wooden flooring throughout, and I doubt that was true years ago, but you know, it has windows, as you can see. But it was pretty impressive. And then in that same area are the caves. And these are the caves. This is the entrance. These had 44 rooms in there, 44 different rooms carved into this massive rock. And so you enter, here's Linda going in through this little hole. And then once you're in, you start climbing up wooden stairs from one room into another, all the way through. And you're still coming out safe and sound. It's interesting. There is stuff up there. You'll see, I have a few more pictures taken there. I don't know what it's used for, not to live there, I don't think. But you see these, it's like Roman baths or something, you know, but I doubt they have water in there. And then you can see how they can interconnect all these. And then in a lot of them, they had these like little structures. They look like cairns, but I think they're praying rocks. And I'll say that because I'll show you a picture of what Linda did at one point. And then obviously this is just like brick thin. So, but yeah, it was fun. We were on our hands and knees crawling through all these rooms. Here's some more examples. These are like the cairns I was talking about. There. And see how you tunnel up at 2 levels here, you drop down and you can go up. It was pretty impressive. And now this, somebody pointed out to me, this is at the edge of town down by the river. He said this is where the lower class live. And to me, those houses look pretty darn nice. I don't know, maybe because they flood. I don't know why it would be for the lower class, but yeah, that surprised me when he said that. And I took pictures all the way around as we were traveling. There are all sorts of old fortifications and castles that have, you know, are now in disarray, but all over the mountainsides there. Probably the biggest one being the castle in Lo Manthang proper. And there you can see the remnants of, no, that's not it. Another picture will have it. But this is the little star, a bright star, excuse me. The proprietor of the place and state. And these are just the next day on the trail going down and around. From Lo Manthang, we went to the Gami. And to get there, we had to cross 2 passes, the tallest one of the entire trip, and another one. This one was 3,800. With Chocola Pass is 3870. No, that's Bena is 3875. So a little, almost 13,000 feet. And the caves were at 3,600 meters. You all were asking about altitude, but those are at 3,600 meters. I'm thinking it's 4,300. It sticks in my mind, or 4,380 is Chocola, but that's the tallest pass. So this was one of our toughest days in terms of altitude gain and loss. And I'm not sure what the mileage would be, but I have to check. That picture Phil took of me, and it looks really impressive. But what happened was I was sitting at a pass waiting for Sundry and Phil, and Linduk was there, and I said, Linduk, I'm going to be bad and just climb that little hill. And so there was a little hill, maybe 30 feet. I said, I want to see what's on the other side. And as I got to the top, Phil says, Holly, turn. And he took that picture and then sent it to me. I went, whoa. Unfortunately, I can't blow it up because it doesn't have the detail, that I need, but it would be fun. And then this is Annapurna 1. No, I take it back. It's the one behind it, right? So this one's Annapurna 1. Yeah, the back one that always has a little cloud over it most of the time. And apparently, I didn't realize this, but Annapurna has 4 peaks. That's the tallest. It's about 8,000 meters. But after we climbed up and over these passes, we got back into greenery here. And we were going to the Gompa, the monastery for lunch. Let's see, what is it called? It's called, I have to get, I'm talking instead of turning pages. I can't find it now, but I'll find it. Oh, I think it's a Gar something, it's Gar something.
Lunch.
It's lunch. Yeah, I had dalbat pretty much every day for lunch. Poor Phil isn't a real fan of dalbat. And there was one place in Elam, he had dalbat for dinner. And he said, I bet they're going to have dalbat for breakfast. It wasn't dalbat. It was actually pretty good. I mean, they have a curry that they serve for breakfast, which is actually pretty good. Potato curry and the other things in it. But this is the can't, right? Sorry. It's my own stupidity. I should look where I put my fingers. This is the monastery where we had lunch. They served lunch to us there. And I have pictures of dalbat. Dalbat, if you have not had it, usually comes with a big mound of rice, of white rice in the middle, and then like a spinach with peppers or something. And here they did bok choy instead of spinach, which was really good. And then they have curried potatoes, and then of course the dal, which are lentils, like a lentil, very thick lentil soup, but they're whole. The lentils haven't been ground up, and they can be green, they can be brown. I didn't see any red, but and it's like all you can eat. And they always assume you want more rice. I always wanted more curried potatoes and spinach, and occasionally the dal. And usually I'd have to give away half my rice, but they'd always come back with more rice for you. And again, more tortons and more prayer wheels. And then after that, we climbed down to Dakmar. And we were going to spend the night in Dakmar. Dakmar is named for these red rocks. There's not much in Dakmar other than a Buddha and tourists, a few tourists, and these rocks. And Dakmar means melting butter or melted butter rock. And you can see why they come with that name, with all the erosion.
You get to these spots by car or just by foot?
That's an interesting question. Most of these places now you can take a Jeep, but you have to have a guide with you on your Jeep. You can't just ride on your car by yourself. You can take a Jeep tour. And we met a couple at Yak Donald's, I think it was, that were from Britain. And she was a palliative care physician, or is a palliative care physician, and was teaching the Nepali. She was on a sabbatical teaching the Nepali palliative care. And her husband was a teacher and was working in the school system. And this was their last hurrah before they went home. Well, their guide came down with dengue fever on halfway, like a couple of days into their Jeep trip. And there they were, stranded without a guide. And they were frantically looking. They found a guide, but it was like touch and go because they were going to be stuck in Tank Benny if they couldn't find a guide to go with them. But yeah, there are tons and tons and tons of Jeeps and tons and even more motorcycles. And that's why you want your buff, because I can tell you, walking these dusty roads, I usually hate buffs, but let me tell you, I was wearing mine more often than not. And this is the other thing that people come for, is this golden Buddha. And then we're heading back to the river, but in that one town, again, more sky caves. More caves that people lived in. Pretty impressive, I think. And as we head back and go past the Manny Wall again, and again, past the studios that we passed, going into, coming back from San Boche last time. Now we're climbing into San Boche, but from the other direction. The first time we climbed in along the road, this time we're gonna climb in on the trail. So we climbed in on the trail. And from the top there, you can see, okay, this mountain I know. These are the twins. And this is the one place where they become separated. Most of the time, they look like a single peak, is what I was told. This is, it's not Nepali bread, it starts with a CH.
Tibetan bread.
It's Tibetan bread, but it starts with CH. Oh, chapati or something?
No, it's Tibetan bread.
Okay, Tibetan bread. Okay, basically, it's really, they use soda, baking soda as a leavener. And I watched them make it. They like roll it out and then they just slice it with 3 slices and throw it into deep fat and fry it. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be awful, but I'll try one. Well, let me tell you, they fill you up. They're great. The guide would have one for breakfast every day. But I thought I had a whole series on making it. We have it on my camera. And then as we're climbing down, we bumped into this gentleman, and it's the only time I've seen pets on the trail the entire trip. And we climbed down into what is it? It's Jaita, what is it? Where the Tenzin is. I'll think of it. But anyway, back to see Tenzin. And there was a group of German trekkers. There were 6 men, I think, 6 or 7 men that had been friends since boyhood. And every year they take a vacation together. And this was their vacation this year. And we kept bumping into them on the trail. Well, I walked in and I went, oh, Tenzin, you're here. And she's like, you know my name? And thankfully I had it written down in my book because I checked my book quick before I got in there. And then as I'm walking out, I said to the German, and that's little Tenzin. And I said, oh, Tenzin, how are you doing? And this girl is like on top of the world. I mean, everybody knows her. It was really fun to watch. And then again, back to San Boche. And in town, again, that's the monastery that we've seen before up on the hillside. And this is the one of the other places that we had stayed previously. This is that one hotel, 2 toilet town. It is small. Yeah, I need my cheat sheet, but I thought it was amazing. One of the women that works there was making this scarf or this piece of fabric, and their garden is just absolutely incredible. And then this time they even had a little friend there to join us when we got there, greet us when we got there. And now we're climbing back. What we find out, this was something special. When we went up the one side, we missed, it's called Chungsai Cave, Chungja Cave, and it's a Buddhist holy site in the mountains at something like 300 meters up from the river or 400 meters up from the river. So we're in town, we climb down to the river, climb back up to the monastery, back down, and then up and over in the next pass. This day was a little crazy, but it was worth it. So we start out and we go into this cavernous area that looks, it felt like Grand Canyon, these huge cliffs going up to either side. This is a cave in the cliff and you can't really make it out. I have 2 pictures of 2 different ones, and this is, believe it or not, the better one. But there's a wall here that someone's put in. So probably someone, a shepherd of some sort, rounds up his animals, probably his goats, in there. And we climbed down to the river and then hung a sharp right up a hill to this monastery that's up in a cave here. And as you walk in, this is what you see. This is the priest's living quarters. In fact, he offered us a hot tea and, we declined, but he was awfully nice. And then you go back in back behind this. And it's like a regular Buddhist sanctuary. You've got, you know, the Manny Rock, the prayer rocks here, and then the individual ones that people bring with them here in and amongst all the stalactites or whatever. And then you've got the Buddha, a golden Buddha, and then you've got different emblems of, I guess, of different goddesses in here. It was pretty amazing. And then there's a higher one above it, but Lunduk and I tried to get up there and we both said, it's not worth it. We can see a nice view of the river and we're not going to get it in anyway. So we hiked back down to the river and then hiked up. Lunduk here was placing a prayer rock. That's why when you were asking me like things that I said were probably people placing rocks in prayer. I think that's what it was because I know he prayed there. And we are climbing out of the river to this location right here. And then we're going to drop down into San Vicente. And this is the pass here. And it is, I can't remember how many feet this one is. It's high because you'll see on the other side, you drop precipitously. This is when you hit the top. And then we drop right down like that. And then across the swing bridge and up into San Vicente. And again, more switchbacks on that side. So in answer to your question, maybe not much mileage, but we got altitude. And this is, again, that brand new hotel with the washing machine in the bathroom. That's where we had lunch that day again as well. And this is the town of, they pronounce it Killing. It looks like chilling, Chill, but it's actually Killing. And we weren't allowed to go through it. That was the second town we weren't allowed to go through, but now we can view it from the other side. And then we were going to stay in Kali that night again, but we said, look, we're so early, let's just push through to Chorsang. And so that's what we did. And this time, when we crossed the Kali Gandaki the first time, we crossed on a road walk. This time we took this little, this is the newer bridge. You should see the older one. In this picture, you can kind of make it out here. But we crossed on this bridge, this footbridge, very low over the water. And we stayed in this hotel, very modern. Up front, it didn't look like that, but in back, the hotel itself is incredibly modern. Right on the river. Now, remember those red fields of buckwheat? We came back, they looked like candy cane. Because people will, well, the folks will cut them and will lay the sheets out to dry like that. So the red flowers are all in one direction. And we sat there for a good bit of time. I said, what is this, a couple of horses taking that stuff? And Phil says to me, Holly, those are people. I went, really? Oh my God. I mean, the piles of the shapes were just so high. And we sat there and watched this gentleman and two ladies bundle up the stuff. And then he carted off and then come back for more. But yeah, it's by the end of our 2 weeks plus, all the red fields look like candy cane. And then just that I hadn't seen on the river going out were these 3 trees living quite well, actually, one of them anyway, on a rock, like a sandbar in the middle of the river. And this truck, we were trying to figure out how the heck it got there and how it was going to get out. And this is that little town across the river that I thought is just lovely, that it has this wall here, you can't really make it out, that the water settled out behind it. And then what you can't see in this picture, I have others that show there's a whole like list of line of 5 or 6 stupa that go up, or torten that go up the wall. And then now we're back in Pagbeni. With the old town there and some new there and some new there. And that afternoon, I decided I wanted to go see if I could find an ammonite myself. And because on the trip north, I met a bunch of Dutchmen, young Dutch guys on a motorcycle trip that were hammering on rocks. So I decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to find myself an ammonite. Bill found a fossil on the road. It was just on the end of something that had already been cut open. But he was kind enough to give it to me because Sandri and I would sit there banging on rocks as we waited for something. But I decided to go upriver and get one. And as I was banging on rocks, this wonderful lady here on the left comes over to me and she goes, I said, what? And she was basically telling me, come up the side of the river. And like I was handing her rock going, isn't this? She goes, no, no, this one, no, no, this one, no, no. And so she picks one up, a beautiful sphere that I had in that picture way back, and hands it to me. And she says, sample. And I said, should I cut it open? Open? She goes, no, 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 no. I said, don't open? She goes, no, no. I said, okay. And I got a whole new sense of the work that goes into find these ammonite rocks. I guess all the ones on the surface have been, taken over the years. So these guys go out there, and her husband, I guess it is, came up shortly after she and I got there. And he was wonderful. He handed me an apple, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to give him in return? I gave him some of my all the rest of my crystallized ginger that I happen to have in my pack. But there she is with a crowbar, and she'll like loosen the big rocks. And he had a sledgehammer, and they hammered some, and others they just pulled out. Like there she is pulling one out, and then they build these big rock walls on the rock bar there in the middle of the river, looking for the ammonites. So I had a whole new appreciation for my rock after seeing that. That 1200 probably wasn't too much to ask, but I helped them out for a little bit doing it just for the fun of it. Yeah, this was the other entertainment for the afternoon. Just just between town and where we were sitting, all these cars crossed the river, everything. Motorcycles, I saw one guy fall over into the water. Try and get through motorcycles. I have a tractor going through with a load of who knows what, and a big Jeep going through. It was kind of fun to watch. And then this is the next day. We're heading out to Mulkanak. Now, Mulkanak is one of the 4 Hindu pilgrimage sites in the world, but it's really interesting in that it also has Buddhist shrines there too. Like there's a big Buddha in the garden, and those pictures are the ones I don't have ready for you guys. I'm sorry. But we went and I was blown away, just totally blown away. I kept saying to Phil, I can't believe this place, because it felt like New York City at rush hour. There were people everywhere. And they came in, all these busloads of pilgrims, and they were on horseback. They had several people on those chairs being carried. We had people with walkers that could barely, or canes rather, could barely walk. They had other people on people's backs. It was amazing. And then there's a set of, I don't know, probably 200 steps or something leading up to the actual shrine. And up there are 108. They look like lion's heads, but spilling holy water or sanctified water of some sort coming off the mountain into a trough where people put bathing suits on and just run through. Or there are 2 what they call holy pools, pools that this water has been fed into, and people will bathe there. So it was just a mass of humanity. And then they had an eternal flame in one of the temples, and then they had all sorts of incense or prayer candles, yak oil candles yak fat candles being burned and stuff like that. It was pretty impressive. And I'm sorry I don't have my pictures ready for you, but it was just, first of all, it was my least favorite day on the trail because it was a road walk the whole way, and the buses there, and I put together, I don't know if I have it here. I had a picture of some of I showed you the picture of the buses. They're all decked out and stuff. And the buses have this horn that just plays like the old ice cream trucks have music. well, this was obnoxious music. They hit their horn and they get obnoxious music for 5 seconds or so, 10 seconds. And it was just like you're walking alongside of the road because there was no other place to go. Occasionally we can break off. So in terms of the hiking, that was my least favorite day. But seeing some of the stuff on the way up was kind of interesting. It was, again, a lot of towns where it was half very old and new. In fact, Phil, you were saying from the 17th, from 2017, it's really changed. So yeah, it was quite a day and quite a journey. And it was capped off by the fact that our flight never left Johnson, because the flights only fly between 6:30 and 10 a.m. because otherwise the winds are too hard and blowing too hard. And if you're delayed, oh well, if the planes coming in from Kathmandu are delayed, you need, as we said to Sangri, a plan B. He learned that term too, not only 11Zs, but plan B. And I said, it's easy. Put us in a boat, have Lenduk be our coxswain, and yell at Phil and I to row, because the Kali Gandaki goes all the way back to Kathmandu, right? Or actually back to Pokhara. So, and they laughed at that. They thought that was a great idea. But no, we had a Jeep. And at one point, on these crazy, crazy roads that are probably wide enough for a car, maybe, and a bit, all the traffic came to a stop. And I said, Sangri, what do you think is wrong? And I said, he walked up and he says, oh, I thought he said they're cleaning the road. I said, cleaning or clearing? He said, they're cleaning. And I'm thinking, this is mud. You're not going to clean that too well. He meant clearing. There had been a mudslide across the road. So we had pulled up there for a little bit. And then when we got to Pokhara, again, our flight, we walked into the airport and the whole board said, delayed, 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 delayed. And our flight never took off. So again, we were back in a Jeep going back to Kathmandu. So, you had to have a plan B, but it was good. So anyway, I don't know if I can answer any questions, but if anybody has any, let me know. No? Okay.
How many days were you gone?
I was gone almost a full month, but that's the other half of the story. Phil and I were going to go to, well, we did go to Eastern Nepal to see, let's see, what would it be? Your nephew's daughters and her husband. And they were wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful. And then we were going to go into India. And so before Phil and I took off, if any of you are planning to go to India, listen up. Before we got our visas, and where I live in the Mercer County area or Middlesex County, there's lots of Southeast Asian people. So they have a visa office right there, 10 miles from my house. And we went in, the two of us got our e-visas. It took him over a week to get his. He was in the airport saying, Holly, can you check on my visa? I still haven't gotten it yet. So we got our e-visas. And it turns out the reason he was having problems is India has 3 different databases. One if you fly, one if you, go in over foot or car, and one if you come in by boat. And they don't talk to each other. So they had Phil going in the country and not coming out, or the other way around, going out and never having come in. And so it took them lots and lots of talks. And then once we got to India, they wouldn't let us on over the border because we got an e-visa. And e-visas are only valid if you fly into the country. So if you're ever going to India, you do not want an e-visa if you're going to trek across a border somewhere. So just a word of warning. Yeah, but we made the best of it. We went up to Elam and to a tea plantation there. It was fun.
Holly, thank you.
Thank you guys for your attention.
Oh.
Thank you. I thought the other.
Yes, I have one more